And what's up? Friday, GC Live. He is Chris. I am Wes. And man, do we have a lot to get to today. Media day yesterday, first practice today. Chris and I were out there. We braved the weather for you. Light rain this morning, but practice underway. Very first preseason practice of the Shane Beamer era. We were out there for, I think, about 5 segments of the practice plus the stretching. So just enough for us to overanalyze everything that we saw this morning. So we're going to have some practice observations. We'll take your questions. I'll go ahead and warn you, though, we're going to get a ton of questions, I'm sure, especially for people who missed the intro. How did this guy look? How did that guy look? What did this newcomer do? Frankly, we're going to tell you kind of a combination of things we've heard leading into preseason camp. And really, you're talking about eyeball test, movement, how does a guy move? How big is he? Does he look fluid? Has a guy gained weight, lost weight, depth chart stuff? We can get into all that. As far as like 1-versus-1, those days are over, I think, at least for now, as far as college football goes. So we're going to get into all that. But first, got to tell you about our good buddy, Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network, ClintHammond.com. 803-771-6933 is how you can get in touch with Clint. A good friend of mine hit me up actually 2 days ago. She's about to buy a house. She said, "Hey, don't you have a mortgage guy?" I said, "I do." I said, "Call Clint Hammond. He's the man. He'll take care of you just like he took care of me." So, if you want to maybe save some money, great time to refinance. If you're trying to sell your house, trying to buy a house, hit up Clint. You're going to need a new mortgage. Check him out. He'll take care of you. And, man, I'm telling you, by the way, the folks at StreamYard, by the way, which is who does our streaming, really great service. But good grief, they have completely rearranged how things look behind the scenes over here on the stuff I click to get to the graphics. So I'm sitting here as I'm talking. I'm flying through these graphics trying to find what I need to pop up on the screen. And finally, there I see Clint's, I was about to say smiling face. I guess he's not really smiling a whole lot, but his NMLS number is 71597. I'm told we have to say that. C. Hammond at mortgagenetwork.com. Chris, practice. We're out there. We got a lot to overanalyze. But first of all, I'm going to invite everybody, go to our YouTube page. We got a ton of videos for Media Day yesterday. We've got some sights and sounds for Media Day. Chris and I hopped on the camera this morning as well to talk a bit about practice with some quick hitters. And I understand we're going to have some sights and sounds from practice from Kendall Smith, our new intern, coming up a little bit later on as well. But, dude, I was just glad to be back out there first and foremost.
It is. It doesn't seem like that long ago that we were at spring ball, but it has been a long enough layoff. I would be fine with year-round football, to be honest with you, Wes. So great to be back out there. Weather wasn't great. Don't know why that was. I don't think it's an omen. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. But it was nice to be back out there, and a little bit of an extended stay for us today at practice because we got to see 5 periods. We're more accustomed to first 3. Stretch and first 3 is what we kind of become accustomed to over the last few years. And I think that's what we got. That's what we've been getting, basically. So we got to see 5, got to see a little bit more. There was still we always joke about seeing stretch and special teams. We got to see a little bit more than just some special teams today. So that was good. Of course, didn't see full team, and the team's not in pads yet. So still early in practice, but definitely good to be back out there. And there were a few things to take away, even from day one in that short span.
So, Chris, I think we got to start with Marshawn Lloyd, man. I was thinking about this, what's noteworthy, what's not. First of all, I guess, as far as today goes, we knew Marshawn Lloyd was going to be back out there. It was expected. I frankly think probably by the end of by the end of the spring, he maybe could have gotten out there and done a little bit more than he even did. It sounded like, but you never want to push that. There's no point at all in potentially get him hurt in spring practice. But man, to see him back out there, we all know what he went through. We all know what you listen to the kid talk, man. It's really hard not to pull for a guy like Marshawn Lloyd. He was available at the thing on Thursday, and he said, "Look, I don't have that mental block anymore. Don't even think about it when I'm running." And as far as the knee injury goes, that's a big part of the process for guys. And hopefully when he's actually getting hit for his sake, that will be the same case, that there won't be that sort of mental carryover there. But man, I think even though it's expected, it's at least noteworthy for our fans out there who are watching or listening to report, hey, Marshawn was out there. He was in a full garnet jersey, no blue jersey, which I guess is what they're using now for the guys that are hurt. Marshawn Lloyd is back. And, we've talked about it on here, man. I don't know if Marshawn's been talked about quite enough from the people outside of South Carolina. I think he projects to be everything that he projected to be this time last year.
Yeah, and we didn't, caveat, disclaimer, whatever you want to call it. We didn't get to see him again carrying the ball in some full team period because A, we didn't see that. B, they're not even in pads yet. So, but what you are going off of is he's out there, he's full go. Like you said, Wes, not wearing blue jersey, not standing around, not limited. He's going. And, I saw Shane Beamer giving Marshawn, could hear it from across the field. Yeah, Marshawn, because he was, praising his effort, Shane Beamer was in a special teams drill. So he looked quick. He looked ready to go. And that was great to see, because this is a really awesome kid. Everybody from the day he stepped on campus last year really raved about him, not only his talent, but the kind of guy he is. And so there was no doubt, and I think I said this on our show yesterday, I was going to say Wednesday, but yesterday, that, it was no surprise that he attacked his rehab, got it done, and he looks really good. So we are assuming nothing else happens, which is a game of football, you never know, on track to see Marshawn Lloyd's first collegiate carry, which has been a long time coming. It feels like he's been on the roster for 3 years, and it's been 1 year. I think last year was just long, and then no Marshawn Lloyd in spring ball. So just highly anticipated for him to get his first carry and on track to do that and expecting good things from him.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I was trying to get it. Let's see. There it is. That is Marshawn Lloyd today taking a carry in practice from, I guess that's Jason Brown. So, yeah, Marshawn Lloyd is back. The news, not awful, but also not quite as positive as far as some other guys we found out on Thursday, Chris. We had heard this rumor, about Kevin Harris for a while, and Beamer did confirm it that he had a minor back procedure and that he's out right now. I actually think the little clip there from Beamer where he said that Kevin was basically begging Clint Haggard to clear him for practice. That's probably a positive sign that maybe that thing isn't as bad as maybe some of the rumors that were floating out there at one point, Chris. And, I think he's a kid that has already proved that he really heals very quickly, at least in some past situations where he's been banged up. But yeah, as far as injuries go, the first really official injury report of the year was released on Thursday. Harris out for now, expected back for September 4th. Cam Smith was the one for me that kind of came out of nowhere. I had not heard that. Stepped wrong, I assume, hurt his foot. He's out right now. Will be back, projected to be back by September 4th as well. There are some other guys, Bam Scott. We actually saw he was dressed today, but was limited in some things he did. He's the junior college kid that just arrived not too long ago. But, to me, that's the two big ones as far as like projected starters. Kevin Harris, Cam Smith, as was suspected, they were not out there as far as full go in practice.
Yeah, and when you look at Harris, obviously a guy that has proven it on the field, a very productive player. Like you said, Wes, I mean, the healing of that injury, you remember, I mean, I'm going to give the description because that's how it was described to us, but basically he tore a muscle like off of his pubic bone, is what it was, and came back a lot quicker than everybody thought. And I can't even think about that injury without shuddering, but got back. Now he's had throughout his career, we'll say, he's had some times where he's been banged up and battled some small things. He's largely battled through them, and or like you said, Wes, healed up from them. And so hopefully that's the case here. Shane Beamer, as you said earlier, indicates he's fully expected to be good to go for the opener, which is obviously a positive. I think the one thing you look at in this situation is with the staff changeover, you've obviously got a new scheme. And so Harris, missed some time in the spring as well. It is good for any player, even if we're talking about juniors or seniors here, to get reps, mental and physical, in this new scheme, right? Because is there going to be some carryover in some of the run concepts and things like that? Yeah, I mean, there will be. But it is helpful, to be able to, any reps you can get in this new offense, it's going to be a good thing. So now that said, talented kid, you wouldn't expect that to set him back a ton, but it is something I think you can consider. Cam Smith is a guy that obviously it's very nice, very important for South Carolina that this is not something right now that is expected to be serious. We know that they've got to stay healthy as a team overall, but particularly at some critical spots. DB is one of those critical spots. You can't afford to lose a guy like Cam Smith, who's probably going to be one of your starters. I mean, that's a guy that you really need. And so, he's down for a while. Obviously, you'd like to have him out there to continue progressing too. He's still a young player going into his second year playing ball on the field. Got kind of a taste of it last season, and a guy that you're really counting on this year. So the sooner you get him back, obviously the better.
So let's go into actual practice now. Any observations, any thoughts we have? Chris, I'll let you expound, but I already know you're going to go with it. So Karan Prunty, man, I mean, again, I don't think we can call it a surprise because people that read Gamecock Central, it was before he even committed to South Carolina that I think we were already saying, look, if South Carolina gets this kid, he's probably a starter, right? Like and you always have that caveat. Guys have to earn it, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're projecting out the opportunity here plus the ability with Prunty, it was pretty clear. If South Carolina gets this guy, they even said, I believe it was at SEC Media Day where Beamer was asked about Prunty, and he essentially was like, look, we actually felt okay about our numbers by then, but it was just this kid was too good to turn down. Like, he had to be a priority for South Carolina when they realized they had a shot at him. I still believe probably one of the best gets of the Beamer era so far when you look at the need there, the ability to come right in and play, to be available for this season as opposed to next season, which is what most of the guys you're recruiting right now are going to be available next season. But Prunty, as we reported, as we said on Gamecock Central, out there with the first team. Like you said, the fact Cam Smith wasn't out there, that took away a little bit of the drama there. Still not a surprise at all for Prunty to be there. You maybe could have made a case if Cam was out there that he could have been second team. But I think that that just sort of confirms everything we kind of thought going into this thing.
Yeah, for sure. And, some of the stuff, while no coach, whether it's Shane Beamer, Torian Gray, Clayton White, none of them have come out and said, Karan Prunty is going to be a starter for us. And there's a lot of reasons why they wouldn't say that. But there have been some things that can kind of lead you to that conclusion, at least before preseason. So if he is everything that they believe he could be, given their situation in the secondary, in which there's not really a lot locked in. There might be one or two guys that might have a spot kind of locked in the secondary, guys with experience, that are coming back. But other than that, there's openings. And Karan Prunty is one thing. Look, Wes, if this is a guy that you really think highly of coming out of high school, it's still somewhat of a projection because then you're moving a guy into a college game. There are a lot of variables, a lot of factors there. This is a guy that has proven production at the college level, albeit just 1 year, right? It's not the same as if J.C. Horn decided to come back this year. There is a difference. I don't want to put that on Karan Prunty, but it is at least a guy who has a year of impactful college experience and has shown that his talent level projects to college. And so you have that in your back pocket if you're South Carolina, and you bring him in. And again, fully expect that. I can't remember which coach it was, if it was Torian Gray or Beamer or Clayton White, but one of them at one point said, hey, Karan Prunty and Cam Smith have a chance to be a really good duo for us. So saying things like that and what Beamer said, what Torian Gray said on Thursday at Media Day just about Karan's potential to be a playmaker for them, you kind of add all that together. Not a surprise that he's out there with the ones on day one, and I think he's got a great chance to hold on to that status.
So, Chris, other guys or other things that caught your attention, we mentioned in the Quick Hitters video, TJ Sanders. This is the kid, with newcomers, it's always kind of, again, we're talking off the hoof, so to speak, look test, eyeball test. How do they move in space? You're not seeing the complete picture. We're not even seeing, like the Oklahoma drill or anything remotely similar to it out there. So you have to sort of project a little bit. But, man, I thought just physically the kid looked great. And, I think Nick Barrett, going back to – he was a guy that was already here in the spring. We already had heard some pretty good buzz about Nick Barrett. That continued this offseason. Nick looks the part. If you want to glance into the future down the road, is it possible TJ Sanders is a starting 3-technique defensive tackle for South Carolina, and Nick Barrett is your starting sort of like nose guard or 1-tech, holding up guys in the middle? I don't think that's a far-fetched thing at all. Like, I think early on you're sort of trying to figure out, okay, are these guys hits or misses in the recruiting process? And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to know, but I think those two guys, just based on what we hear, are already trending towards the hit side of things. I put eyes on Colby Fields in person for the first time. Actually a pretty well put together kid. I think he'll keep adding muscle, but he already has the definition of a kid who has been working hard. Juju McDowell was getting some reps rotating in with the kickoff return team. I know you mentioned seemed like DeCarrion Joyner may have the edge there early on, just based on the way the coaches are talking. But we did get, I guess, an opportunity to put eyes on some of these new guys for the first time.
Yeah, and going back to defensive tackles, the two freshmen with Barrett and Sanders, we've written about them even before preseason, Wes, as being two guys that we've heard that the staff had been very happy with as far as the returns, what they did in the summer. Nick Barrett, as you said, was able to go through spring, but in the summer program, TJ Sanders was a summer enrollee, so it was his first time. Looks really good physically, can move. We knew from his basketball days he's pretty nimble on his feet, and also a guy that's kind of raw just because he's inexperienced overall just as a football player, on the field. But both those guys look the part. The staff, from what we understand, has been very happy with them. That doesn't mean, Wes, that, just to clarify this, that they're going to make some huge impact this year, because defensive tackle is an area where South Carolina's got some depth. They've got some guys back that have played. They've got some guys there that have talent. Got some guys there that have talent that have not shown it yet for a variety of reasons, whether it's been injuries or just inexperience, whatever it may be. But those two guys, like you said, looking into the future, there's some really nice early returns. I'll echo you on the other guys. I think Colby Fields, freshman linebacker, he was, I think, a little bit bigger even than I anticipated, but still obviously room to grow. Bam Scott, didn't get to see him really move around, but good length, good size, good height, a nice frame. Another one I'd mentioned, West side of the newcomer group, is Ladarian Craig. Got a chance to look at him. He was working as a backup at corner, but he was a kid that had really good length, really good size. Didn't get to, formulate any opinion, didn't get to see him move around or cover anybody for a long enough a period to know about that. But I was a late get for South Carolina in the recruiting process. Obviously, they needed some numbers at DB, but that's a guy that's got some athleticism and definitely looked the part in terms of his length at corner.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I didn't get to – I don't think I saw – it's kind of – you have this short period of time and you're trying to look at as many people as possible. trying to see as many guys as possible. I don't think I saw Ladarian. I will say, like you said, though, man, Bam Scott, I always thought Bam Scott on film looked, size-wise, he is a linebacker. He's like a true, like, in-the-box type linebacker, not like an edge guy. But you watch him rush the passer on film, he does have a knack for getting to the quarterback. And so, that always stood out to me. And then I saw him in person. I was like, okay, I get it. He's one of those kids that he's taller than I expected. He has long arms. Generally, those guys with long arms have a knack for keeping offensive tackles off of them in a pass rush situation. So, I can see that. I don't know if you're going to sit here and project him out and say, wow, that guy's a future buck. But I also think he is a guy, once he's ready, there's going to be some pass rush juice there that I think South Carolina will probably be able to use in the future. Now, Beamer said yesterday that he's still not completely cleared for everything. So, is this a guy maybe plays down the road this season? Is this a guy maybe even red shirts? Is a guy that plays 4 games? You've got some options there. It's not a bad thing at all moving forward. So this is a kid that was very highly regarded as a JUCO linebacker. It stuck out to me at the golf tournament. Clayton White was asked how I'm trying to think exactly how he was asked. He was basically asked, can a guy, or how hard is it for a guy to come in at the last minute, like get in August and play on this defense and like start, like be a dude? And he said, it's impossible. And we were all like, that's hardcore. Like, that's a hardcore answer. And, then he sort of backed out. He's like, well, I shouldn't say impossible. I shouldn't have said that, but it's difficult. And, Prunty obviously is going to do it because, hey, you have to. He's been here a couple of weeks at least, maybe 2.5 weeks or so, to at least start getting on the sort of football shape side of things. Well, I think for a guy like Bam Scott, a guy like Isaiah Norris, who's expected to be in at some point by this weekend, for those guys, it probably is hard to step right in. And for us to say, we probably shouldn't say expect these guys to play right away. That's probably not fair to them at all. But I do think there's probably some talent with both of those guys that file them away in your brain later this year, potentially, or even just push it to next year. Maybe they are future contributors as opposed to right this second contributors.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, that's okay even for a guy that comes out and is, a really highly ranked high school guy. Like, you don't give up on guys if they're not immediate contributors in year one, and you also have to consider the circumstances of it, right? I mean, so these are guys that are going to arrive late. Bam Scott, later arrival than originally hoped for, but he is in, which is great, and now he has to wait to be cleared. On one hand, I think you look at linebacker, and I want to dive into that a little bit more, Wes, because I have a little bit more kind of piggybacking off what we talked about yesterday on Thursday. There's openings there. I don't know internally how great the staff feels just about linebacker overall. Like, your defensive line you feel good about in terms of your starters. How do you feel about linebacker? Probably not as good. I think the even bigger concern there is depth, and so we talked with Clayton White yesterday. You remember on our show on Thursday here, Wes, I kind of brought forth some of the statistics from last season from a couple games about how many snaps linebackers played. And I can't even remember if I mentioned the Ole Miss game. I went and looked at that one later. I think Ernest Jones played like 86 snaps and Damani Staley played 3, and that was it. Like, that was it for that game. And so that's not ideal. So, so on Thursday afternoon, after we did the show, at Media Day, I asked Clayton White about linebacker depth. And I asked him about snap counts. He kind of said that, hey, I'm not necessarily tracking that during the game. How many snaps are we at as a team? Because there's so much stuff going on. But he said, in general, the less you play, the better you're playing. He said that can go the other way. If another team's scoring quickly, then you're not playing very well. But he typically wants to keep it, the 60 range, the 70 range. That's more ideal. When you get up in the 80s, you become more uncomfortable. But applying that to kind of your linebacker depth, he said you've got to have 3 guys you can count on. And he said ideally you've got 4 or 5. He does want to rotate guys a little bit more if possible. And so a big part of that is finding guys that can play both spots for you when you look at the Mike spot, the Will spot. Right now there's a few guys that can do that for him. He feels like Sherrod Green can do it. Brad Johnson can do it. Damani Staley can do it. He wants to keep bringing along, your Mo Cabas and some of these other Debo Williams. He wants to bring along those guys as well. Those are, I think, the 5 he mentioned. He mentioned Darrell Ware, too. That was another one. He's a guy that got some run last year, former walk-on from Fort Dorchester. But I say all that to illustrate the point of there's openings to be had in terms of linebacker depth, but it is going to be difficult for a guy like Bam Scott to come in and take that playing time away from some people that have been on campus longer and gotten more acclimated.
Did y'all talk about Debo much at all?
We talked a little bit about Debo, not in depth. He kind of said that he wanted by the end of preseason to feel like that Debo had kind of, I don't want to misquote it or misparaphrase it, but he wanted him to be comfortable with kind of maybe both positions even. He seemed to want to bring him along more in that regard. But Debo is working as a Mike right now. Like that was kind of double confirmed. Of course, Brad Johnson's playing Will, Sherrod's playing Mike linebacker. But he does want Debo to be able to come along and kind of master that Mike position.
Debo, a guy, I don't know, man. I think as the year goes on, maybe he was working with the second team today. That means he's already up there, right? Like he's already inserted himself to an extent. He's already in the mix. I think he's a guy maybe as preseason progresses or even maybe as the season progresses, starts pushing for more playing time potentially. So I'm always curious to sort of see what the progress is on him because I know he is also a guy that the fan base has kind of latched onto a little bit because of his film coming in, the transfer from Delaware. He's a guy that just people, I guess, gravitate to. So I think he'll be one to keep an eye on as practice continues. Chris, I tell you, man, so I listened and watched Luke Doty speak yesterday at Media Day. And then, of course, he was first team today as expected. No surprises there. Again, I don't see that changing at all. But I couldn't help but think and notice just how different of a situation Luke Doty is in on August 6th, 2021 compared to August 6th, 2020. He comes in last year. He's third team quarterback. I don't remember exactly when the news came out that he was playing receiver, and rotating in there, but that happens. We talked about him, I'm sure, and he was in the mix, and we'd already talked about, this is a kid that does everything the right way off the field. And I don't want to make this sound like Luke himself has changed any, because Luke's one of those guys, he's going to be the same kid regardless. But there was a certain just calm confidence. He had a comfort level about him, and he talked for a long time, answered every single question with some depth. Didn't just give you let me answer, the Marshawn Lynch, let me just answer this because I have to. Gave really thoughtful, drawn-out answers to pretty much everything anybody could throw at him. And then we see him out there today. He's always been a confident kid on the field, but it stuck with me, the stark contrast between Luke a year ago and Luke now as far as where they are in this program, what's expected in this program, and even physically, man, he's always been a kid that you can tell works hard. But I think it's actually obvious that he's been in a college weight program now for a year plus, looking at him now compared to before.
Definitely. I mean, as you're saying that, I can kind of visualize him as a high school junior, high school senior. You probably remember, Wes, the we could really have some fun. You want to put up that freshman high school picture of Luke? But, thinking about him even as an older high school player, junior, senior year to now, like you can just visualize, even without looking at the pictures, the transformation, getting bigger and stronger and more filled out and all those things, more mature. Always been a mature kid, emotionally, but just more physically mature. So, yeah, I mean, it is a deal where this looks like his offense, and he's going to be one of the leaders of this team. He's always had those traits. And now that's kind of manifesting itself, right, in this team. And he is a confident kid. It is different. You're right. And so one thing that we know, man, is that this season's not going to go by with people wondering what things may look like with more Luke Doty on the field. We're going to see plenty of Luke Doty on the field. Remember last year, it was whether it was playing Luke at quarterback or, we were even told at times Luke's going to help this football team wherever he may be, even when he was playing some receiver. And that didn't really happen. And we don't have to go back and relitigate that. But that's kind of what happened. It just never came to fruition. Now it's going to. This is his team, and we're going to see plenty of Luke Doty this year. Wes, I know you probably got some more, thoughts on Luke, some more discussion. I want to make sure we talk about Colton Gauthier too a little bit, because is this a good time to do that, or should we somehow segue? So yesterday, something that stood out to me, listening to a little bit of Marcus Satterfield. I didn't spend a lot of time over in his area yesterday, but offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield was talking about quarterbacks and kind of what they put on their guys. Wasn't asked about anybody specific, Luke or Colton or Jason Brown, anybody. He gave an answer to the question, and then on his own, he said, shoot, with Colton even, he said, Colton's doing things right now, executing things at the line of scrimmage as far as making calls and checks that NFL quarterbacks are doing. He said, now we're not executing them like that, like an NFL quarterback, but he's doing those things at the line. And I thought that was telling. Maybe he picked Colton because Colton is the only true freshman on the roster, right? Like that might have been part of it. But we know, Wes, that Marcus Satterfield's been really impressed with Colton Gauthier since he enrolled in the spring. The arm talent, the maturity, how he's picked up the playbook. This is a pretty extensive playbook. There are a lot of NFL-type concepts in it. And so I thought it was pretty telling, that he has continued on that path. And I think, Wes, again, we didn't see the quarterback pecking order today, but based on spring, is still Colton Gauthier's number 2. He's going to have a solid chance of holding on to that status, I think, throughout preseason.
Well, let me just say this. I didn't see Colton Gauthier make a single mistake today, Chris.
That's right. Nobody did.
Exactly.
Well, we did see somebody drop a pass or some kind of ball.
I did. Yes, I did. Yes, when they were doing swing route. We're not going to call them out.
No, we're not going to do it. No.
That would be unfair. But yeah, man, dude, I think, Colton was one of those guys you look around and Rivals, shout out. Rivals had him as a 4-star, but he wasn't, he was not a 4-star all around the different networks. And, South Carolina landed him. I don't really feel like there was a sense when they got him, because a lot of people, frankly, wanted to talk about Gunnar Stockton so much. There wasn't as much hype around South Carolina getting him as there usually would be around a quarterback that has 4 stars by his name. So, point being, ever since this kid has arrived in Columbia, we've heard very solid reports. And there's also just a little, I don't know, man, there's an it factor about this kid, a little swagger about this kid. He plays guitar. He's like a multi-talented dude, great personality. He continued our trend. I believe we've had South Carolina's quarterback signee on a show of some kind, be it our recruiting special on 107.5 or on GC Live this past year. Colton was on there with us. But that's 3 or 4 years in a row we've had that. But dude, I thought personality-wise, is the type kid that people can get behind. This is clearly Luke's team right now, but you got to like what you've heard about Colton.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you do, and I think just there have been multiple people, very familiar with the program and kind of what goes on within it that have told us things about Colton that are very positive, whether it's his physical traits or just how he's picked up things. You kind of put both of those together. This is a guy that's got serious potential as a passer. You look, I mean, he's a big kid. He's got athleticism. Is he going to be as athletic, fast out of the pocket as Luke? No, not many people are. But he has athleticism to where he can run, he can scramble. He certainly can make the throws. Um, Physically already pretty developed, and mentally, that's been the thing. Not that I'd heard anything otherwise, but that's always a question. How are guys going to adjust to the college game? This is someone that I think in high school, Westwood, he had three or four different offensive coordinators, basically one a year at the high school level, and adjusted and played well each year. Now he gets into this Marcus Satterfield offense that's not simplistic by any means. And he's picked it up extremely well. And now, to his benefit, he was able to go through spring, but he really took it and ran. It's not like he was exited spring number 3 or number 4 on the quarterback depth chart because he's still learning. He's still picking up things. Is he still learning? For sure. But he was able to really, take advantage of that opportunity and put himself in a nice position.
Yeah, man. So let's see, Chris. Who else have we not talked about that we need to get to? Let's talk O-line a little bit, man. I was sort of a little bit surprised listening to Greg Atkins talk yesterday, and Josh Kendall had asked him a question. He said, I think where he was going with this was, why do D-line coaches all want to rotate their guys and offensive line coaches do not? And Atkins sort of cut off the question and said, well, I will rotate my guys. I do rotate my guys. And he said at Marshall, he had 9 dudes that he felt like could play. And most games, 9 guys played. That's a little bit unorthodox, right? Like, it's a little bit different, at least than what we've seen around here for as long as I can remember. Again, I've said this before. I can't speak to other teams' personnel rotations because I don't pay enough attention to it, because I don't know their rosters well enough. For the most part, you play your 5 guys, I think. And he mentioned how many guys here he feels like are ready. And it wasn't, I think ultimately he landed on maybe saying 6 guys he felt like right now, he felt pretty good about, but said there were maybe 3 more that could go in that category. I thought that was interesting. He also said, basically, if you have a 6th guy, you find a spot for him in order to involve him. What exactly does that look like? Do you make him a goal line tight end as like that extra blocker? Are there situations where this guy does something very well and you get him in the game? I thought it was an interesting philosophy, though, as far as, hey, if this guy has put himself in a position where I, in this case, the offensive line coach, feel like he's earned a chance to play, we're not going to not play him just because a guy may be a little bit ahead of him. It seems like we could potentially see more of a rotation on the offensive front than we have seen in the past if these guys have all earned a spot.
Yeah, and that will be interesting. It was definitely an interesting comment and philosophy for Adkins. I have to go back and dive into that a little bit more and kind of look at how many snaps, maybe what his splits were at Marshall with playing some of those guys would be something interesting to go back and look at. But you're right. I mean, it's not something we're accustomed to seeing around here recently. Just kind of thinking back off the top of my head, the first thing that popped in my mind was that Steve Spurrier, didn't seem to rotate guys a lot when he was the coach, unless he just pulled a guy because he was mad at him. That was something that sometimes happened. But trying to think back to, Sean Elliott, Eric Wolford, his 2 different stints at South Carolina, didn't seem to rotate guys a lot, right? There wasn't a ton of that. There were some games in which the 5 guys that started went the distance. A lot of, sometimes they had a 6 offensive lineman that would factor in packages. Sometimes a guy got banged up. Somebody else would come in for that guy, or you shift somebody around. But as far as pure rotation, hadn't seen a lot of that. I do know, South Carolina's in-state rival, Clemson, they actually rotate on the offensive line some. That they actually do start some guys, and they rotate more than most teams that you see. But I think in general, Wes, you don't see as much rotation up front, but South Carolina may be poised to do a little bit more of it this year.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And Adkins obviously being a guy, Chris, that he's seen a lot of ball. He's coached a ton of ball in his day at many different places. And that's sort of how the spot he's settled on, or the approach that he has settled on taking there. Tell you, man, a kid that I really enjoyed talking to yesterday, EJ Jenkins. We've talked up these tight ends for a while. And for one, man, can you imagine being a fly on the wall in the tight end room with this bunch? I mean, we've been around Nick Muse a little bit. Funny dude, hilarious dude. So what you see is what you get. The Nick that you see in media settings, that's Nick Muse, like to a T. You got Jaheim Bell, funny guy. By the way, the Jaheim Bell and Zaquandre White show, more of those on the way, Jaheim told me. So that's cool. Then, dude, EJ Jenkins, talking to him, this guy is low-key hilarious. Like one of those people that you're like, you don't know where the line is between them being dead serious and them just completely trolling you and messing with you because you made the comment, it looked like y'all were having a serious conversation over there. I'm like, no, dude is just hilarious. So I'm going to post that video probably at some point today. But EJ is still listed as a wide receiver. And he keeps lining up at tight end. He was asked, what position are you? Well, I'm both. Apparently he told David Conger. David said, what's your split? He said 50-50. So he's not giving it away, but he's in the tight end room as far as we all know.
Yeah.
He's a tight end for the most part, I think. But I'm starting to buy into the EJ Jenkins hype. Like I'm ready to see what this guy does on the field for South Carolina. And man, if we're doing our jobs, we've got to highlight this kid enough to where he can get a Cream of Wheat sponsorship on an NIL deal. Because we talked, I don't know if y'all remember, back when he first arrived, there was this clip that comes out, probably from Justin King and that crew, and they were trying to like introduce you to the new guys. My man said he loves some Cream of Wheat. So I asked him, I was like, dude, so you're trolling everybody with that? Like, do you really eat Cream of Wheat like you say? He's like, man, I'll go home, and he goes like this with his massive hands. He's like, I will eat 3 bowls a day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner of Cream of Wheat. And I'm like, first of all, I've never heard anyone say that sentence in my life. Second of all, NIL, like, hello, like what is the what's the grits company? I'm sure they have
Quaker Oats or something.
Yeah, Quaker Oats. Like, what are y'all doing? Sign this kid up. Yes. Anyway, on the field, I'm interested to see what this kid does.
Yeah, and I think that relates to something else that Marcus Satterfield was talking about yesterday, and Greg Adkins talked about it too. And that was, they're not really pigeonholed in this offense. Greg Adkins went as far as to say, he said, I think COVID helped a lot of coaches because it helped them kind of break out of some of the traditionalism maybe in their offense. And he said, you kind of were forced to adapt your scheme to your personnel even more. And that's something that we know from hearing him talk and Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator, talk, Shane Beamer. They want to take the strengths of this team right now and kind of build around that. Part of it, necessity, sure. But one of the things that Satterfield said that stood out to me was that they've got some guys that have some different, unique types of skill sets that they can use to their advantage to potentially make it tougher on defensive coordinators. Now, obviously, EJ is one of those, a wide receiver by trade who, is in the tight end room now that can play either. Jaheim Bell's another one of those guys. We talked about him on yesterday's show, Wes, all the different things he can do for you. So if you trot out, if you break the huddle or come off the sideline with Muse and Jenkins and Bell, the other team, their entire defensive staff, they're going to be looking at what kind of personnel you're in. They're going to be looking to call that out and trying to get an idea very quickly of what you're going to call. When you send those guys out, what are you in? What personnel are you in? What are you basing your call off of? It's not as easy to do that until you see the formation. Then you've maybe got some room to adjust and shift some things and move it around, make those guys more difficult to count. So EJ is one of those guys. And so tight end, yeah, traditional tight end, not really. And so he's obviously, with his size, his hands, he's going to be able to be a potential, matchup problem for South Carolina against some other teams.
By the way, shout out to Kendall, our new intern there. Apparently she's joined the show here, Chris. She says 10 out of 10 coverage. Appreciate that, Kendall. Y'all go check out her. She's got 2 videos up, about to be 3 on our YouTube page. If you're not subscribed to us on there, youtube.com/Gamecock Central. Chris, we haven't talked about the show, or I keep saying the show. You keep saying the show, and you're putting that in my head. The party. We have not talked about the party.
I messed it up a lot.
August 20th. That is 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from right now. We better have this thing ready to roll, or we're going to have to leave town. So VIP tickets are on sale. Still some available. Go ahead and get them before they're out. And I really, really hope that we see y'all out there. By the way, there's been, I don't know if you would say confusion, man, but we did have a couple questions. If you come out there for free, you're getting a concert for free. You're getting the event for free. You have to pay for your own food. You have to pay for your own beer. But if you come out there, you're still getting all that. We're not out there trying to make a bunch of money off of everybody. Frankly, we're trying to break even on that side. But the VIP does add a little extra perk, such as getting to hang out with Chris Clark.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Hopefully that's not a detraction to other people. No, but seriously, we'll be hanging out. We're going to try to hang out everywhere. We got a lot of people to see and meet and all those things. We'll be over in the VIP area a lot. Special guests, probably in the VIP area a lot. 4 drink tickets, which is a good, that's worth a good bet when you start adding that up in your head. Free subscription time to Gamecock Central. Light appetizers. Private tented area. Private bar. So a lot of great stuff. So check out the link that Wes just dropped over there in the descriptions, or in the comments rather, of YouTube, Facebook, Periscope. And make sure you get your VIP ticket. If you can't get a VIP ticket or don't want one for whatever reason, please still come on out. This is for all Gamecock fans. We just want you guys to be there. And it's going to be a great night, I think. Lots of planning's gone into it. We're working hard trying to make it a great night. And we need y'all there to help us make it a great night.
Yeah, and music from Patrick Davis, always a favorite with South Carolina fans. He'll put on a great show. Former player roundtable. I still don't have an exact list of who's going to be a part of the roundtable, so I don't want to promise things right there, Chris, and it not work out. So that's why we've waited to give that away. But we're going to have some folks that are involved at South Carolina come speak as well, talk to you a little bit. And I do have confirmation that our good buddies Preston Thorne and Langston Moore, we've never had Langston on our podcast. We've had Preston on the podcast a couple of times. Preston wears many hats, and he's on 107.5. They also have their books, the whole Just the Chicken series. They will be out there, Chris. Right now, it looks like they will be out there to meet fans, to sign books, to sell some books, maybe, hopefully for them. And they're going to give sort of a little presentation on the stage. And it looks like, I believe Preston's probably going to MC our roundtable, is what the discussion has looked like. So our roundtable of former players. So that'd be cool. Hopefully this is an event where there's something for everybody. It's like, if you're into this, we got this for you. If you're into that, we got that for you. Lots of different things. It's going to be fun, y'all. So come out. If you want VIP, go VIP. If you don't just come out anyway. But chances are, once you start eating food and drinking your drinks out there, you may spend close to what the VIP is anyway. So you might as well just go ahead and lock down a spot in the VIP area.
Yeah, that's a great point. Travis says VIP's paying for the things you're already paying for. That's what you said, Wes. So, yeah, I mean, that's true. What you don't want to happen is to get to the party and say, oh, man, I really should have gone VIP. You know, now you may get to the party and say, I'm fine where I'm at. Lots of people do that, and that's awesome. But whether you want, like I said, whether you want to come and just enjoy the show and get your own stuff, that's fantastic. But VIP is definitely going to be really cool as well.
No doubt. All right, so that's going to do it. He's Chris. I'm Wes. We've enjoyed it. Jam-packed show. Hopefully you enjoyed it as well. I think we've hit it all, man. So until Monday, y'all have a great weekend. Hopefully you got better weather where you're at than we do right now in Columbia. And get your Gamecock football questions in. Save them. We'll talk about them on Monday. And